Welcome to Downtown Sports. My name is Downtown Steven Brown, and in today's video, only because so many of you keep commenting on it, and because of the previous video that we did here on the channel, because in the previous video, we touched on how teams like the Pittsburgh Penguins, well, it's just rumors at this point anyway, might not be able to afford to spend up to the salary cap ceiling next year of $81.5 million because of the economic situation that the world is kind of in with the global pandemic and all. And I don't say that happily, right? I'm not celebrating this. The fact of the matter is that we're in the situation that we're in, and if the Maple Leafs can use their money to take advantage of other teams' financial situation right now, they should probably look to do that. And like I keep saying in these videos now, this would be the third one in the series of can the Maple Leafs make a trade with blank? There isn't just one singular course of action that the team can take this offseason. There isn't just one solution to the mess that we find ourselves in now. And we're going to be exploring several different options. And by the end, when we're done doing that, we'll take a look at and see what makes the most sense. So in today's video, we're going to look at and see, is there a trade to be made between the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Anaheim Ducks? Looking at their cap-friendly page, there's two players on here that stand out to me, and I guess if they were available, they would be at two different price points. The first being Hampus Lindholm here, a 26-year-old left-handed defenseman, signed for $5.2 million for the next 2 seasons, drafted in the same draft year as Morgan Riley, and then, obviously, Josh Manson, the 28-year-old right-handed shooting defenseman, at $4.1 million for the next 2 seasons. The Anaheim Ducks are a really hard team to read to kind of know what they're doing this offseason because they have a really good goalie in John Gibson, and if they could get something going in front of him, you could see how they would be a playoff team again, maybe, but if you're looking at this forward core here, I just don't see it. This team needs to hit the reset button desperately, and they need to not let their best assets just diminish and go for nothing. Now, a guy like Hampus Lindholm, who is 26 years old and signed for the next 2 seasons, he's probably not going anywhere, and we know how much they really wanted to hold on to Josh Manson, but as soon as you say that a guy is available, you know, his trade value kind of comes down a little bit because you're shopping him. So if you say that he's not available, you're playing hardball, right? You make other teams pitch you offers, and you control the leverage in that situation. So I can see if they did receive the right offer for Josh Manson, I don't buy it that he's just not on the table. I mean, just look at this. How can he not be available for trade? And if the Maple Leafs were to flex their financial might in a trade for Josh Manson, they would have to take on Ryan Kesler's contract. And of course, it's unfortunate Ryan Kesler probably not going to be playing hockey anymore. He did have a lot of injuries that just piled up on him. So that's really just an LTIR contract. And if you're interested in knowing how LTIR works, I did a whole video based around this Frank Saravalli article, which I will leave linked above the screen and in the description of the video. I explained the whole thing and how it works and how the Maple Leafs probably shouldn't flirt with it this offseason, but if it's going to help you get Josh Manson, it might be worthwhile. And if you're curious to know what 20% of $13.3 million is, it's $2.66 million. And that is, of course, spread out over the course of 2 seasons, so it's about $1.3 million a season. It's not a game-changing amount of money, but it's not anything insignificant or to scoff at. And if you remember to this past trade deadline, the Maple Leafs actually got in on the action that sent Robin Lehner from the Chicago Blackhawks to the Las Vegas Golden Knights. They retained 50% here, but it wasn't really $2.5 million. In actual dollars, it worked out to about $190,000 or so. So the Maple Leafs basically purchased a 5th-round pick for $190,000. So if a 5th-round pick has a monetary value of $190,000 in this deal, then $1.3 million this season and next year is obviously worth more than a 5th-round pick. So taking on Ryan Kesler's contract here and the money that's not covered by insurance should bring the cost of Josh Manson down a little bit. Let's say it's the equivalent to a 2nd-round pick. And for the Ducks here, if you're looking at the breakdown of things, it's a really tight teeter-tottering act that they're going to have to do next season if they don't trade Ryan Kesler's contract. Now, I'm going to talk for a little bit here, but they have $78.5 million committed to next year's cap, which means in actual cap space, they only have $3 million in space. But of that $78.5 million, only $66.5 million of it is real dollars that they need to pay out to the players. But fair point to the Ducks here. It is conceivable to say that they'll have more than $66.5 million in real money to spend towards next year's team. But they're hindered a little bit with Kessler's contract because in order to receive any salary cap relief from it, to have more than $3 million to spend, they need to spend that $3 million and more so to receive any relief from it. And even then, if you're confused by that at all, please watch the LTIR video. I will have that linked in the description of the video. Feel free to watch it after this one. But they're hindered by that contract because using LTIR money, which they did not use any of it this season, by the way. They finished with about $2.8 million in cap space, so Ryan Kesler was just on injured reserve the entire year, not on LTIR. But it is very hindering to be in LTIR or using it, because if you have players on your team that have performance bonuses built into their contract, those performance bonuses are not payable with LTIR money. And it is a really deep draft this year, and they do have some prospects, and they do own the 6th overall pick, so who knows on that front. Using LTIR also makes it very difficult to accumulate cap space throughout the season, which makes making in-season trades very difficult. And if you're hearing that and you're a Maple Leafs fan and you want the Maple Leafs to have flexibility in the season to further improve the team, you might not want them to use LTIR, but if it gets you Josh Manson, I can live with it. They've maneuvered around it now for years. So now that we've covered the value of taking on Ryan Kesler's contract, let's take a look at Josh Manson and see exactly what it would cost to acquire this player, or what it should cost to acquire this player. And I'll just go ahead and take my face off the screen for this one here, but we're on evolvinghockey.com, and we will take a look at HB Analytica and Hockey Reference as well to put these numbers into context. But when we're looking at Josh Manson here, I mean, he didn't have the worst 1920 season, and I mean, he did have some injuries, and the Ducks aren't the greatest team, so that might be playing a factor into these numbers here, but it is no secret he is not the same player that he used to be. Unfortunately, this is not Josh Manson from the 15-16 or the 16-17 season, who was very dominant on either side of the puck, a real two-way defenseman, really. And that's not to say that he's necessarily bad. I will give him the benefit of the doubt that the Ducks collectively weren't that great, but there might be a case of perceived value coming into play here over what Josh Manson is actually worth right now. And I think that we should be very mindful of that perceived value in what he used to be versus what he is right now. Looking on over on HB Analytica here, he's not the defenseman that he used to be, but he still is that quality type of defenseman that is going to give you valuable minutes 5-on-5, and he is a real killer, which I can understand why it's attractive to Leaf fans. Also plays the penalty kill, which is something that the Maple Leafs could need this offseason. It would be nice to have another penalty killer on the roster. And if we're contextualizing his numbers here over the last 2 seasons, in the 1920 season, he was used more in a neutral role by his coach, with the zone starts being about even. In the 18-19 season, he was used in a very heavy defensive first role. But if we're looking back to Evolving Hockey here, we can see those numbers in the 18-19 season when he was used in a very heavy defensive first role weren't the greatest. And when he was used in a neutral role, the numbers kind of climbed back up there. But again, I will give him the benefit of the doubt. The Ducks weren't that great of a team in either of those seasons. But definitely something to be weary of, and what I was talking about earlier when it comes to perceived value and actual value and what this player is at this point in his career. He will be 29 by the time next season starts, and he is the type of defenseman where he has logged a lot of hard minutes on his body there. So how much are we really willing to give up for a guy who's on the wrong side of 20? I said this before in previous videos, Josh Manson is a nice piece, and I would like to have him on the team, but he is not Jake Muzzin. And I think people need to understand that when looking at what we would need to give up for a Josh Manson. You do not pay the price that the Maple Leafs paid to get Jake Muzzin for Josh Manson. And if we're taking a look at what the Maple Leafs gave up to get Jake Muzzin here, Carl Grundstrom, Sean Durzi, both later second-round picks in their draft years, and the 2019 first-rounder turned out to be Tobias Bjornfot, which was 22nd overall. If you believe it's true that Jake Muzzin is better than Josh Manson, and the Leafs gave up a first and 2 later second-round picks to acquire Jake Muzzin, then what are the Maple Leafs giving up to acquire Josh Manson, who is not as good as Jake Muzzin? Don't get caught up too much with this armchair GM. The players that are on LTIR are players that the Maple Leafs could look to be trading this offseason. They're guys that I would explore trading before any of the core four guys anyway. So if Josh Manson isn't as good as Jake Muzzin, and we're already taking on Kessler's contract, which let's just say is the equivalent of a second or a third round pick, what else are we adding to this deal? I'm okay with adding Kasperi Kapanen to this deal, but I'm not okay with adding Kasperi Kapanen and Timothy Liljegren to this deal. For me, it's one or the other, and I'd rather trade Kasperi Kapanen than Timothy Liljegren. Now, this is pick224.com, and I will leave a link to it in the description of the video. But what we're seeing up on screen right now are defenders in the American Hockey League age 23 or younger, sorted by even strength primary points per game. So basically, this is a list of the most efficient offensive young defensemen in the American Hockey League here, and the guy right at the top is Erik Brannstrom, one of the main pieces that was included in the Mark Stone deal that sent him from Ottawa to Las Vegas. And just below Erik Brannstrom here is our guy Timothy Liljegren, who's the same age as Erik Brannstrom, so I don't know why so many of you are so quick to just throw this guy in to any old trade. So I will repeat myself here. I'm willing to give up Kasperi Kapanen in a deal for Josh Manson, but not both Kapanen and Liljegren. That would be ridiculous. And also, I would be very reluctant to include Timothy Liljegren in this trade as the main piece of it as well. I just really don't want to trade the guy. So Kasperi Kapanen and Travis Dermott and taking on Ryan Kessler's contract, is that enough to get the deal done? I mean, if it's not, you just hang up the phone, because Josh Manson, like I keep saying, there's not a singular solution or one course of action to fix the mess that we're in right now. I'm not interested in losing another trade. I mean, if we had to add like a third or a fourth round pick or a fourth round pick and another mid-level prospect onto this deal to get it done, sure. But I am not interested, and I will stress this again, in overpaying and losing another trade to fix the mess that we're in. There are other solutions and other options out there. And if you're curious here, with Josh Manson thrown in here, we got about $5 million left to go out there and get another defenseman and some more offensive depth if we moved on from guys like Andreas Johnsson and Justin Holl, in addition to already moving on from Kasperi Kapanen and Travis Dermott. Which $5 million is more than enough money to go out there and get you one of Radko Gudas or Dylan DeMello and another guy to play on your third line. But let me know what your thoughts and opinions are down in the comment section of this video, because that's what it's for. Make sure to leave me a like on the video if you did like it, and subscribe for more, because more is always on the way. And guys, remember, I'm going to end these videos off the same way from now on. I finally figured it out after about a week or two of just, I don't know. There's not just one singular solution. There's not just one course of action here. We don't have to overpay in a trade for one guy that your uncle really, really likes. There's a lot of ways that we can make this team better.